is that going to happen? Who knows? We've got to make some kind of intelligent guess, but I'd like to actually see what those figures look like on an FTES basis and then say, all right, this is what we actually think the real growth will be over the 5, 10-year, 15-year period. The other question that so I don't know whether you have that data already.
Yes, we do.
Okay, and whether if you've got it here, it'd be great if we could see it.
Yeah.
The other thing that I'm interested in seeing is Sadiq said that if we hit the figure 26,000 FTES, that is a sustainable figure. That is a figure that where if we had that kind of revenue generated, we were being paid for 26,000 FTES. What I'm wondering is, when do we hit 26,000 FTES, or are we not going to hit that because we're not going to get paid for it? And so, we'll never get there, and so we'll forever be floundering. Anyway, those are the questions that I had.
Maybe I should if I could make a suggestion. Quite often when we do these, we do obviously a lot of work that doesn't go into print in order to print what's there. What I'm hearing from you, first of all, we project out each year of the 15 years. Maybe what we need to also bring to you, and we can augment with this, is a snapshot at 5, 10, and 15 for you to see that, considering the frustrations that you're sharing with all of us that we do have in terms of funding, if you hit these increments, let's say you grew, but you've only been able to hit that 5-year mark, not the 15-year mark, at least you know what you look like and what you need for facilities and programs.
Right.
And we can break those increments out for you. And probably that should not be a problem because we've already done it.
Okay, that would be very helpful. Here's the other question I had about, Dr. Chong expressed some surprise at this 1% growth rate. And what I'm wondering is, when we look at the educational master plans for each of the colleges, if we looked at Laney College's educational master plan, I'm presuming that they took the McIntyre data into account in their planning, and they said, well, here's what we think we're going to do over the 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. Here's where we think we're going to grow and how we think we're going to grow, and et cetera. Is that, in fact, correct? And then was that plan actually integrated into this plan?
Laney's been between 40 to 45% of Peralta's enrollment forever. So I have a problem with these projections that will bring us down to 1/3 and expecting the other 3 colleges to so-called pick up the slack. I don't see that personally happening. And I don't think any of my 3 colleagues would disagree with me right now. So, but what I'm saying is that
Good one, Frank.
it just doesn't, the past, the present, and the future, you base it on the past and the present. So I don't see where you go from Laney being 45% of the district's enrollment, and in this plan, it'll take us down to 33% because if we're 15 out of 45. So I just don't think that it's based on any real data that I've seen that would show me that. I don't see people fleeing out of downtown Oakland and this area and a community college population moving to Alameda and to the hills. Maybe Berkeley's different, but that's just where I sit, and I think many of my fellow Laneyans feel the same way. So I just find that ridiculous, to be honest with you.
Trustee Galazza.
A number of the questions that seem to circulate around the accurate predictability of all of these data, and what I was wondering about is, to what extent is this this whole plan here a dynamic, in a sense that on an annual basis almost you feed the data into this particular model, and then it begins to modify or whatever the projections based on the actual realistic data on an annual basis, or even earlier than that, so that if you determine at some point that merit is not fulfilling the prophecy that we have laid out at this point, that already we can be reshaping and having resources flow into other areas. So that was my question.
Okay, let me try to give you perspective of what we currently do that might share some light in your question. Every year, the State Chancellor's Office asks the district to be able to show the square footage area for the buildings. And the reason for doing that is to be able to determine the facility load capacity of how well we are utilizing the classrooms every day. How many times a day do we utilize a particular room? And also to find out if we have added some more space or reduction of some more space during the year. That information we send to all the college presidents to be able to determine if there was additions or subtraction. And also to let the state know what the enrollment numbers were for the current year. So based on the number of FTEs that we have, and also the space that we have sent to the State Chancellor's Office, then they determine the amount of scheduled maintenance monies that they're going to send to the district. And usually that goes to Bob Beckwith, who utilizes that for maintenance fees, but it's not sufficient to be able to do what we need to do. Then they also have instructional monies that is sent annually that we take care of library equipment type of things that is given to the Department of Educational Services to disburse according to FTEs to each colleges. So what that says is that every year these figures are looked at both at the district and at the state level. And if we begin to find that there is a variation which is different from what we have. If it is subliminal type of variation, you say, okay, that is okay. But if there is a market deviation from the data that we have relevant to what was forecasted, then we need to take actions about that. For instance, Berkeley City College, we know, has been growing tremendously since they had the new facilities. So therefore, in the next 5 years, we continue to make provision and allocations for them to be able to rent a space or spaces that are much closer to the current campus for the student to utilize that. This year, because we are doing the build out for BCC, we rented some rooms in a Constitutional Square for them to be able to utilize for that. So to answer your questions, yes, every year these numbers are looked at to be able to determine how well we're doing.
My question was designed to determine not only how well we have been doing for that particular year, but to what extent that information then immediately adjusts the long-range plans per se. Again, I'm looking at it as a dynamic model. The data is fed in, and the outcome begins to give us an indication of how we have to modify or modulate or whatever it is what we're doing.
Let me mention that when you looked at the recommendations that are in the plan, and when we talk this, it is absolutely dynamic, and it's ongoing, not yearly. It should be a daily, monthly. It's a guide that you live with every time you enroll a student. The point which we want to make here is that this is a start. This is why you see enrollment management up there. And I respect where the president of Dr. John, what you say about Laney, because it's been that way forever. But I challenge you, is that the way you want it in the future? Is what you've been doing the right way? Now, I don't have the absolute answers, but I know, because I worked in many districts in my career, and we've always got the haves and the have-nots. We have the preferred kid and the stepchild. You're living through that. We found that in our interviews throughout this district, that perception. Laney's the big kid on the block. They get everything. That's the quote you hear from other colleges. Right or wrong, that's what we heard. Now, I turn to the folks here. I'm not making this up, folks. And what I'm saying is, for the health of the district, I think, and as the leadership, you say, let's see what we can do to at least try to balance the institutions.
We need to expand the pie. Respectfully, I think what we would hope is that the other three colleges would continue to grow, but not at the expense of any other college.